So what's required now, and why I think these forums are such a good sign, is refreshment of our public community lives. You know, I was thinking last night, I heard a prophecy from a very good ad woman years ago. She was one of those amazing early achievers in the Australian advertising world, called Jackie Huey. She's a woman now of about 78, I think. And she said to me years ago, you know, we're winnowing out that the very small level of intimates will be focused upon, and the large, the global level, and the middle level will wither a bit. And I thought, oh, it's a strange sort of prophecy. But I think that that is what has happened. And I think that we now need new, clever, modern events that boost social cohesion, that boost the personal over the impersonal, that consciously spread that accidental contact that I said was core to a sense of quality of life, and boost goodwill. Because in the past, if you think about it, I don't know about you, but in my growing up phase, Australians routinely met each other at key places, key spots, schools, Rotary, the golf club, the racecourse, yacht clubs, sporting groups, that sort of thing. Maybe the local milk bar, as opposed to coffee shop. Trade unions, churches, CWAs, that type of arena, that middle arena. Now, many of those are now much less reliable, I'm afraid. I regret it, but it's true. And I think it was the Queensland government that did some research a while back suggesting that only the primary schools were genuinely reliable venues for cross-fertilisation in our communities, although I'd have to add hospitals too, given that I've been seeing a bit of them lately with my husband. God, they're marvellous places, they really are. Therefore, I would like to see your forums prompt further in the hubs, further conversation on how you might imagine venues for the community that are new to enjoy each other. Because I think once you get the community enjoying each other, a whole lot of good things come with that territory. You can't even predict it, they just come. Writers' festivals are a very interesting relatively new entity, if you think about it. A really growing solidly, incredibly, actually solidly it's the wrong word, growing rapidly, exploding in many ways, bringing all sorts of people together, probably not as broad as it could be yet, but moving into new parts of our land in a way that I think is just fantastic. Big swims, city to surfs. Humble, money-making, undoubtedly, for, you know, a lot of surf clubs just have to have it these days, but so rewarding and not over-forced, drawing people together who can then make their own fun. This doesn't have to be choreographed down to the minute. Other festivals that might even feel a bit artificial at first. I was in London years ago when the Notting Hill Festival started, when they had all that trouble with rioting in the West Indian community, and they started this Notting Hill Festival for the steel bands, and it all felt a little bit artificial and sort of a bit forced, but it grew, and it's just completely got its own confidence now and plays an incredibly important role. It's freed up a lot of creativity, and everybody enjoys it. Sculpture by the sea, if you think about it. There's another very interesting new development, very modest in its aspirations, quite accidental, but it simply captured something the community was looking for, and now it's got all these different things sprouting off and is being copied around the world. It tapped people's desire to do something. And I don't know whether I actually went this year, I hadn't been for a few years, it's just fabulous. New Year's Eve celebrations. Now we just absolutely take these for granted. They weren't. They weren't at all. I can't tell you for sure, probably some of you know, but I think they're, 10 to 12 years old, and they really got going with the Olympics, of course, in Sydney. But now they're the centre of thousands and thousands of families and friendship groups, plans to come. They're absolutely reliable, they're well run, and you encounter the rest of the community. and there's something you can rely on. In other words, I wish we had a national dance, by the way, that we could do, but that's another story. Sometimes you stand there and you think, God, I wish we had something we could do with ourselves rather than merely standing around when everybody's gathered there, but maybe that'll come in years to come. In other words, they play the role of the modern town fair, but they need to fit into a modern set of symbols. They need to feel contemporary and relevant, not Dimboola-like. That's not what will work. My sense is, this is my little checklist, that events need to be cleverly pitched and clearly safe. You need a regular date so that people put it in their diaries. This is not shifting around, will it happen, all full of insecurity. You need a regular date. You need them well organised, in my opinion, from my experience, by a central group of paid workers, only maybe a couple, supported by volunteers. And good organisers are like gold. Absolutely, put them on a pedestal. All the work I've done suggests that it's often the single distinction between a functioning community and one that doesn't function well. A sporting club helps too, and a good community organiser. Have the event or events owned by a range of collaborators. From what I know, generally these new ventures are always the result of, say, 3 separate institutional groups acting in concert. You might have a uni or a TAFE or a school. You might have the local council, you might have private enterprise. They're never, well, maybe they are occasionally. Generally, they're not done by one anymore. They're too big. They're too hard. There should be the explicit aim, in my opinion, of drawing in different members of the community. And they should be staged so that they encourage creative, self-motivating adaptation by people. This is not nanny state stuff that says you will enjoy it in this way and we want you to do that. This is creating the venue that where people can then run, and they will. They will. I've seen this with, I was the chair of the Sydney Writers' Festival. I can't tell you what suggestions would come in after about 3 years. It did take that long. Similarly with Sculpture by the Sea, all these breakout things. So if it's done well, I don't think we're interested in inefficient things that we're embarrassed by. I think that's not modern Australia. We want it to be classy. And of course, it does spring directly from this happiness research realm that everybody's talking about. It's on television tonight, actually, on ABC One. It's pointed out in this research that cultures differ in the way they prepare their people for the capacity to derive pleasure out of life. And some of this is quite controversial because some of the researchers say that the US and its whole capitalist model is not good at helping people create pleasure. Others say, oh, yes, it is, because it gives them a chance to sort of maximise their particular role. I'll leave that up to you. Some people say the Europeans do a much better job. I think we're not doing too badly, but I think we could step up a lot. But where I think this happiness research is really good is where it distinguishes between comforts and pleasures. Comforts are provided by things like refrigerators, vacuum cleaners, microwaves, items which people fairly quickly adapt to, oddly enough, and then take for granted. So they definitely contribute to the perceived happiness quotient, but people just take it as a given. And that's the funny thing for governments. They don't get rewarded for providing things like this. They just say, well, you know, that's the guaranteed hallmark of a civilised society. Rubbish collection, amazing. You know, if you start doing interviews about societies that don't routinely collect the rubbish and see what sort of a society you have. So all sorts of things, that services that we take for granted, really are part of the life that we value. Pleasures, by comparison, are derived from feasts, flowers, events, rituals, things which evidently people found harder to adapt to, and oddly enough, as a result, augmented their sense of happiness because they knew they were special. And they, in a way, weren't sure they'd be able to create it themselves, so were a little bit in awe. So it was a more durable provider of happiness and serenity. And I think, of course, what they do is they confer identity on young people. I mean, it's another whole conversation we could have. I'm glad you've got a particular session just for young people, the business of young people swinging in the breeze and drifting because they don't have this sense of being rooted to this changing world of ours. And that is an incredibly, incredibly important topic. And I think this area of festivals, what I'm loosely calling festivals and events, is just a very important antidote. So look, I think all of this that I'm talking about is doable for a good community. It's tough, but it's doable. And if you remember Paul John Keating's words, useful in a self-interested as well as an altruistic way. It all makes sense. And if, you say it is about the vision thing, that's what's often said these days, the accusation to government, but as some wise soul said, it's not merely about having vision, it's about the vision of knowing what to do next. So I hand that challenge over to you right now. Thank you.
So what happens next? Over the next hour, I encourage you, at your leisure, to go and grab a cup of coffee or tea and something to eat and move through the 6 conversation hubs and further comment on the draft objectives. You can join a conversation, chat with others, or post your comments on the wall. We are really interested in knowing what you believe are the possible solutions to achieve these objectives. So it's not just about the issues, it's also about the solutions. Event staff are stationed at the hubs to assist with this activity. They can also answer any questions you have about this evening's forum and the community strategic planning process. We are inviting community involvement in the community strategic planning process until the 3rd of December, after which a draft community strategic plan will be prepared. If you are unable to make comments this evening or wish to further consider the issues, you can participate in the forum on our website by going to gosford2025.com.au. Or you should have also all received a little show bag when you came in, and there's a reply paid envelope in there where you can send comments back to us. That little show bag includes an introduction to the community forums, frequently asked questions, the conversation guidelines, as well as a list of draft objectives and an evaluation form. Topic papers on a range of important issues are also available in the foyer area, and feel free to take one or all of them. I would like to thank you in advance for coming along this evening, and I encourage you to stay around and have your say at the conversation hubs. Lastly, just to thank Kevin once again and Geraldine for coming tonight, and thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.